The mountain peaks of the Canary Islands are an exotic window onto the universe. They climb directly out of the ocean. The Teide rises vertiginously over barely a few dozen kilometers to an altitude of 3,700 meters. It's the highest peak in all the Atlantic Ocean and the third highest volcano in the world. Its summit is an island amongst the islands, a remote place only suitable for the most special of travelers. This mountainous terrain, along with the steep-sided Caldera de Taburiente on the neighboring island of La Palma, share an environment unseen anywhere else on the planet. These high mountain ecosystems are the most extreme places on the Canary Islands, with temperatures that can vary between -16 and 34 degrees centigrade. In this tough, broken volcanic landscape live strange plants and animals that are experts in surviving the freezing cold, the stifling heat, and the intense solar radiation. Very few animals are so well adapted to this environment as the Tenerife or Western Canaries lizard. Nine million years ago, these reptiles' ancestors arrived from the oldest islands, Fuerteventura and Lanzarote, and gradually conquered the entire territory until they reached its summits. The peaks are where Tenerife lizards have the fewest predators and where they can pursue their reproductive instincts unhindered. Large males compete, chasing each other to keep rival suitors away from females in heat. Their courtship races reach their peak in the spring. These are intensely indulgent moments. Food and sex are in abundance. In late spring, the peaks of La Palma and Tenerife are transformed from an unforgiving landscape into a fleeting but incomparable garden of delights. The striking red flowers of the Tower of Jewels, also known as Red, Tenerife or Mount Teide Buglos, are among the most beautiful and spectacular in the world. In crowded colonies, they grow only now and only here, in spring at the top of the Teide and La Caldera de Taburiente. Growing in columns 2 to 3 meters high, the inflorescences of the Tower of Jewels are loaded with nectar and pollen, which attract many endemic insects. Though ephemeral, lasting only a few weeks, their brief lives are crucial for the insect species on the summits. Like prisoners of the peaks that are their only home, the Towers of Jewels mimic these volcanoes that seem to be suspended from the sky. The volcanic origin of the Canary Islands can be seen everywhere. From the highest peaks to the low-lying coasts. The ocean crashes into the Canary coastline, revealing the island's fundamentally volcanic nature. All of the islands of the archipelago have steep, rugged coastlines where the evidence of ancient lava is unmissable. On the islands with the highest altitudes and steepest sides, the elevated volcanic ravines plunge into the sea. In the north of La Gomera, basalt columns emerge like the last remnants of Atlantic temples. All these geological features are the result of volcanic activity, which started creating each of the islands 20 million years ago. Lava is the essence of a bright, burning universe of distant stars and planets. Here in the middle of the ocean, it takes beautiful and primitive forms. The ancient appearance of some islands, such as Lanzarote, brings to mind what the Earth might have looked like as it was erupting into existence. The beauty of a wild and ancient land is on display in the area's geological formations. But life has found a way even here on the most ancient of the archipelago's islands. A harsh and hostile environment, but one which plants, lizards and birds have all made their home. Volcanic landscapes are found throughout the island group, and each island has become a unique place thanks in part to the wild tourists that visit. In the remotest islets of North Lanzarote, Eleonora's falcon spends the summer. After an incredible journey of thousands of kilometers from its wintering quarters in Madagascar, they take respite in Alegranza, where the last puddles of recent rains remain. Eleonora's falcons have established their summer breeding colonies on the steep sides of the volcanoes. The chicks are fed exclusively on accidental tourists, migratory birds that their parents hunt out in the middle of the ocean. Chill winds from the Atlantic drive the migrating birds into the falcon's path, but they also move the ocean currents between the islands. There, caressed by waves and wind amongst the islands that make up this oceanic constellation, dolphins jump and play. These too are inhabitants of the islands, and also its hunters. A cloud of small fish attempts to escape, closing ranks and tightening into a shoal. But the dolphins pick them off one by one, enjoying the delicious snacks brought by the currents. Falcons in the air, dolphins among the waves, and high above everything, the clouds, pushed by the trade winds. As the trade winds, the alisios or easterlies, blow across the ocean, they pick up moisture, which is then transported in the form of clouds. The lowest-lying Canary Islands watch the clouds pass overhead, their life-giving moisture tantalizingly out of reach. But islands with areas of higher altitudes, with summits at hundreds or thousands of meters above sea level, act like a barrier to the clouds, which crash against them in enraged waves. On the Caldera de Taburiente, below the peak of the Teide, or in the heights of Gran Canaria, the clouds launch their attacks against the Kingdom of the Pines. Canary Island pine trees form their forests on high, dry land. They're very Spartan trees and unique to this region. Canary pines are robust, but their leaves are feathery and light, giving them a delicate appearance. Their long, thin needles allow the pines to capture the moisture coming from the sea of clouds that washes over them. In these volcanic forests lives a small and unusual group of unique animals. They arrived here slowly from Africa and Europe, taking a leap to conquer this little new world. Over time, millions or hundreds of thousands of years, they evolved into new species and subspecies that live exclusively in the Canary pine forests. The Tenerife blue chaffinch, for example. The Tenerife blue chaffinch is a unique prisoner living in seclusion in the pine forests of only two islands, Gran Canaria and Tenerife. Its intense blue plumage, somewhat unusual among birds, is a reminder of the universe it inhabits, trapped between the infinite sky and the deep blue ocean. The origin of the Tenerife blue chaffinch goes back hundreds of thousands of years along the lineage of common finches. The Tenerife blue chaffinch has evolved to be able to exploit the Canary Island pine forests, influenced by their ecological rules. This forest specialist feeds almost exclusively on pine seeds, so its existence depends directly on the survival of the pine forests. The great spotted woodpecker, curiously, also lives exclusively on the same islands as the Tenerife blue chaffinch. But these are arriviste, having landed here from the mainland recently, only a few thousand years ago. Discovering the large pine-covered mountains was like reaching paradise for the great spotted woodpecker. A territory replete with food and places to raise a family, without rivals and only a few predators. Every year, the great spotted woodpeckers confirm their conquest by bringing new generations of carpenters to this unusual wooded Eden. Every species in the Canary pine forest has its own story to tell. Canary Island or Canarian red-billed choughs only live on the steep slopes of Caldera de Taburiente, on the island of La Palma, where there are neither blue chaffinches nor woodpeckers. They arrived here tens of thousands of years ago from the Atlas Mountains in Africa, and on the walls of the caldera found rocky, protected areas where they could nest. They easily adapted to the most abundant resource, canary pine seeds. In between volcanic peaks and scudding, moisture-laden clouds, the pine forests provide them with a huge pantry. The islands, like planets from a distant constellation, float in a blue universe. But not an empty one. The ocean surrounding the Canary Islands universe is full of life. Barely a few kilometers from the Canary pine forests that surround the ancient volcanoes, next to the coastal cliffs, patrols a family of pilot whales. Pilot whales orbit the islands like little satellites. The ocean of the coastline plummets and plunges thousands of meters down. The pilot whales know how to exploit the richness of the deep and unknown world that lies just off the islands. They dive in search of large squid, and then the pod returns to the surface to breathe and play, reaffirming their close family bonds. Like interstellar travelers, the pilot whales move among the currents, following invisible paths that unite the Canary Islands underwater. And as always, far above, the clouds slip through the skies, heavy with their invaluable load of fresh water, urged on unceasingly by the tireless trade winds. The ever-restless clouds lash the steep, high sides of the archipelago's highest islands. While on the coasts, it is warm and dry, where the clouds crash day after day. It's very wet and cool. Up here, where the clouds break, one of the most extraordinary woodlands on the planet endures. This forest is almost always enveloped by mist. The mist hides its mysteries behind a veil moved by the wind. The Laurisilva. This subtropical forest, hidden between clouds and volcanic peaks, is a true lost paradise, millions of years old. Laurisilva, or laurel forests, are botanical relics of the Neogene period that took up refuge in some corners of El Hierro and Gran Canaria. But it's on Tenerife, La Palma, and especially La Gomera that the last great laurel forests have survived to this day. The Laurisilva is a mysterious jungle, wet and fertile. The lichens and mosses that cover the trunks and branches absorb the water that hangs heavy in the atmosphere. Woodland experts in milking the clouds. Every square centimeter of laurel forest is dedicated to absorbing moisture from the mist. Drop by drop, a constant flow is created, allowing countless lianas, ferns, and species of trees to grow here and nowhere else in the world. This exuberant, enigmatic atmosphere is home to other lost beings, other prisoners of the mist. Living like forest phantoms or will-o'-the-wisps, some birds' fates depend entirely on the survival of the Laurisilva, their only home. Boll's pigeons move discreetly among the branches of the ancient trees of the unique Canarian jungle. Hidden among lichens and lianas, they seek the nutritious fruits that grow all year. Ball's pigeons barely make a sound and flee at the first hint of a threat. They only let their guard down when taking their daily bath or when drinking from the abundant puddles found in the laurel forest. The laurel or white-tailed laurel pigeon is as discreet and elegant as balls, but can escape the laurel forest to reach open country, even heading to the cliffs and into ravines, where it establishes its nests and looks for food. Laurel pigeons, shy and skittish, are very terrestrial birds. They band together in small flocks that roam among the leaf litter, gathering seeds, grains, and fallen fruits. The pigeons of the Canary Islands are perhaps as old as the very forests where they live. Other birds, in comparison, are more recent arrivals. From its birth, this small constellation of islands has received the advance parties of explorers on an eternal search. Both occasional visitors and pioneers from the natural world with greater or lesser fortune stake their claims on new territories, on islands, in a state of constant change. And although it might appear almost counterintuitive, the most sought-after places by wild travelers are the most extreme. Violent, exaggerated geography turns out to be just what some of the Canaries' most remarkable beings like best. Volcanic ravines are the result of aggressive processes of erosion that have excavated the land here to produce amazing locations. Deep, sheer-sided gorges measuring hundreds of meters in height form some of the most characteristic landscapes of the Canary Islands. The highest islands are the most abrupt, possessing the most extraordinary chasms. These are perhaps the most characteristic natural features of Canarian geology. These ravines are home to stunning ecological tapestries. The plants and animals of these gorges are extraordinarily closely connected. Gran Canaria giant lizards are the masters of these ravines, and as such, their main ecological protagonists. These lizards move over the whole area to fulfill their role. Canary's lizards are almost wholly herbivorous. They mostly feed on endemic fruits and flowers. This diet makes these reptiles the main dispersers and pollinators of the plants of the ravines. Many plant species owe their survival and their distribution to the lizards. But they're not the only ones responsible for pollinating and dispersing seeds. Small archipelago birds, such as the Canary Islands chiffchaff, are actively involved in the reproduction of their favorite plants. Birds and flowers have co-evolved in a mutually beneficial relationship. The birds exclusively exploit a very nutritious food, and in return, the plants reproduce effectively. But part of the symbiotic harmony and diversity of the ravines also depends on predators. The gullies offer excellent locations for a little falcon. The prior conquest of the islands by insects, reptiles, and small birds allowed Canarian kestrels to take up residence without fear of going hungry. The diversity of resources here and the kestrel's adaptive capacity has meant that the Canary Islands kestrel is now the most common raptor on the archipelago. The Canary Island lizards, the kestrel's favorite food, lost their paradise when these little birds of prey arrived. The kestrels are masters of the sky above the tiny islands. But the archipelago is also sea. The space between the islands is not at all an interstellar void. The sea binds the islands together, and with them forms a unique place on the planet. Universal travelers from sea and sky pass here from their birth. Explorers, astronauts taking flight to other worlds, whales, such as sperm whales, and many other cetaceans, swim among the volcanoes. The combination of geographical situation, ocean currents, submarine relief, and climate have made the Canaries archipelago one of the richest places in terms of cetaceans in the world. Here, rather than separate, the sea unites two worlds, the solid and the liquid. Each island offers its own set of opportunities to travelers brave enough to cross the ocean. Ancient forests, cloud-dwelling pine woodlands, towering peaks. In the Canary Islands, lost in the ocean, a complex world has been created. But there is also room for the most fundamental ecosystems. Such as desert. The influence of the nearby Sahara is keenly felt on islands such as Fuerteventura, Lanzarote, and the south of Gran Canaria. The beauty and breadth of the desert occupies the heart of these islands. Surprising animals leave their own traces in the sand. Here, African travelers have found hospitable habitats. The Canarian houbara, a small bustard, arrived a mere 20,000 years ago and discovered desert plains offering an excellent opportunity to live. Among the hables, the local dunes, the houbara found plants and insects attractive and plentiful enough for it not to need to return to its African origins. The peculiar wealth of this desert, which occasionally bursts into bloom, also provides refuge to stone curlews, hiding their camouflaged eggs among the bushes. The Canarian stone curlew's plumage allows it to virtually disappear when the flowery desert is in bloom, hiding it from gulls. Gulls come from the coast to hunt locusts, but they will happily take a seat at a lunch table of a stone curlew's nest with an egg inside. Gulls are aggressive and dangerous, so the stone curlews, barely perceptible in their excellent camouflage, hold their position with admirable sang-froid until the danger has passed. Wild travelers who came, saw, and conquered the archipelago have created a complex ecological network. A recent arrival found no competitors, and so took its place at the top of the food pyramid. A Canarian subspecies of the Egyptian vulture, the gire. This is the only carrion eater on these islands. Barely 2,500 years ago, the first humans landed on the islands with their flocks of goats. The gires followed not far behind. While all Egyptian vultures in Europe migrate every year between Africa and Europe to complete their life cycle, their Canarian cousins have found no need to travel beyond the island's boundaries anymore. The deserts above which the gire flies merge with the coastline. Sea winds push the sands towards the interior of the islands, creating voluptuous dunes. A silky white sheet of fine sand is laid out on top of the volcanic rock. These are the crushed remains of shells and conches, forming endless beaches. On the beaches of the Canaries, the quintessences of two worlds, the terrestrial and the marine, meet. In addition to the migrating birds that make their rest stop on the Canary Island coasts, further inland, strange creatures of alien aspect rapidly create their peculiar designs. These tiny star maps are in fact deadly traps. Antlion larvae build their traps to catch other insects. One after another is sacrificed without a hint of remorse. Just a few meters away, on the other side of the beach, where the ocean surrounds the islands, another surprising creature lies submerged. The Canaries are the last refuge of many beings who have been decimated in other seas. In the case of the angel shark, or monkfish, good numbers of this flattened shark survive here. Angel sharks, like the antlions on the nearby shore, use the sand to hide and to hunt. In addition to the angel shark, these deep and rich waters are home to hundreds of species of plants and animals that depend on the islands to survive. Below the surface, above the waves, or soaring high through the sky, wild travelers and explorers have, since time immemorial, laid in a course for the small constellation of Canary Islands. As if a mirror of the sky above, starfish tirelessly move across the infinite sands. Every day, from the bottom of the ocean to the tops of the volcanic peaks, a miniature universe made from the same elements as the stars above lives out its intense life. And like the constellations that move through the universe beyond, the Canary Islands, floating in the Atlantic, lonely but lush, ancient but ever renewed, intimately bound to the stars and to infinity, await the arrival of new, intrepid, interstellar explorers.